So we just talked about how the Trump regime bent over backwards to help out Tristan and Andrew Tate when they came into the country, even though they were, under a whole bunch of investigations and there were all these charges over all sorts of crimes that they committed. That guy, Paul Ingrassia, who was in the Republican group chat and said, I have a bit of a Nazi streak in me. That guy allegedly got it so that Customs and Border Patrol returned the electronic devices to the Tates when they came into the country. They had confiscated them, and then this guy intervened, and he said the White House is demanding you give back the electronic devices. So that's kind of wild. An alleged human trafficker getting special treatment because he's vaguely pro-Trump, right? Well, guess what? Stuff like this keeps on happening. Take a look at this amazing story from The Intercept. They say the following. Pardoned Capitol rioter tried to hush child sex victim with promise of January 6th reparation money, police say. Andrew Johnson claimed to an alleged child molestation victim that Trump's pardon entitled him to multi-million-dollar reparations. So a couple things. First of all, he is not kidding when he says that Donald Trump is trying to get the January 6ers paid. He's not kidding. In fact, we talked about that on the show. There was a big article about how they're working on exactly that. Trump wants to pay them basically reparations for dealing with legal problems after they tried to coup the government. Not only that, we know that they slipped into, I think, the reopening of the federal government. They slipped in $500,000 payments to the U.S. senators who were engaged in the attempt to coup the government. It's insane, but that's actually what's happening. So they are being rewarded for breaking the law. They are being rewarded for trying to end democracy in the country. That's what's happening. So the guy is not wrong. Trump is trying to give him money. Turns out he's a fredophile. Turns out he was trying to hush up the victim by saying, maybe I'll hit you off with $1 million or more if you stay quiet. So here, let's go through some of this. A pardoned January 6 rioter has been charged with sex crimes against 2 children. Andrew Paul Johnson was arraigned in a Florida court in October on multiple charges, including molesting a child as young as 11 years old, joining a growing list of U.S. Capitol rioters pardoned by President Donald Trump who face new legal trouble. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think we've covered stories before about how other January 6 rioters were also FREDOPHILES. That there appears to be a trend in this group. They are oftentimes FREDOPHILES. In the same way, remember Trump's spiritual advisor? Remember that guy was arrested for being a FREDOPHILE? This keeps happening. It keeps happening. Look, we've said it time and time again. Pedocon theory is a theory like gravity is a theory at this point. It is insane the number of people on the MAGA right who are outed with these sorts of crimes. Johnson dangled the prospect that one of the children could receive money because Johnson claimed he was entitled to $10 million as part of reparations for his January 6 arrest, according to a police report from Hernando County Sheriff's Department detective. Those convicted and later pardoned for involvement in the January 6 riot have not been rewarded any reparations, though Trump and January 6 rioters have floated the idea of a compensation fund. Johnson said he would put the victim in his will to receive any of the money left after his death. Police believed this was done to keep the child from exposing what Andrew had done, according to the arrest report, which was filed in court. Johnson faces 2 criminal cases in county court, one for each child. In one case, he has been charged with lewd, lascivious molestation of a child under the age of 12. In the other case, he faces a charge of lewd or lascivious behavior to a child under the age of 16, transmitting harmful information to minors, and exhibition with a victim under the age of 16. Johnson has pleaded not guilty, and his trial's set to start early next year. Johnson's attorney did not respond to a request for comment, though some records like the redacted arrest affidavits are public. The indictments and other court filings in Hernando County are not available to the public. Florida law allows authorities to withhold information from public records that would identify victims of child sex crimes. Two police arrest reports detail Johnson's alleged crimes, which range from sexual contact with the genitals of an 11-year-old to asking a minor for sex. Johnson's victims, according to a pair of arrest affidavits, were the child of his now ex-girlfriend and a friend of the first child. Jesus Christ, man. On August 26th, 8 days after an arrest warrant was issued for the child sex crimes charges, Johnson was arrested in a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee, according to local media there, which noted his January 6 pardon and set for extradition to Florida. By the way, remember, one of these guys, I don't think it was this guy, but one of these guys tried to argue that since Trump pardoned him for his January 6 rioting, that pardon also applies to other minor sex crimes that he had committed. Pedophilia stuff that he had committed. Stop and think about how depraved that is. He actually tried to make that argument in court. Johnson was among the 1,500 people charged in connection with the riots on January 6th, in which supporters of Donald Trump stormed the Capitol in Washington in an attempt to overthrow the president's election loss to Joe Biden. According to an FBI affidavit, authorities found probable cause to charge Johnson for entering the Capitol illegally and trying to interfere with Congress's certification of Biden's victory. An FBI affidavit includes photos of Johnson climbing into the building through a broken window. Johnson, 44, represented himself in court and pleaded guilty in the spring of 2024 to charges of violently entering the Capitol and disorderly conduct, though he unsuccessfully attempted to take back his plea months later. In January 2025, after Trump took office for his second term, he pardoned Johnson, who had been charged with violently entering a restricted building, disorderly conduct, and demonstrating inside the Capitol. The White House did not respond to a request for comment. By the way, remember, guys, even the staffers around Trump, even his little sycophants and loyalists that surround him, even they were shocked when Trump decided he was pardoning all 1,600 January 6ers. All 1,600. And the reason is they had been saying publicly, oh yeah, he's going to do some pardons, but it's going to be the ones who, weren't engaged in violent crimes. Now, meanwhile, that's not what he did. In fact, he pardoned over 140 officers, I believe, were assaulted. So you have all these legit, straight up violent criminals, all of them were pardoned. And by the way, when you do a blanket pardon for these sorts of people, look at the sorts of people you end up releasing. You end up releasing some of the worst of the worst. They continue here. In the 2025 affidavit that details the alleged sex crimes against the younger child, Johnson's ex-girlfriend told police that she found out he was using Discord to send her child photos of girls. Johnson included sexual comments with the photos. According to the affidavit, she told police she asked the child if Johnson had ever been inappropriate in person, and the child responded that Johnson had molested them 3 times over a 6-month period in 2024. Jesus Christ. The abuse started when the child was 11 years old. The child told the mother, according to the affidavit, when Johnson was still living with the family. The police document says the minor described 2 incidents of falling asleep in the living room and awakening to Johnson touching the child's genitals. Trump is pardoning these people. Trump is pardoning these people. Could you imagine Barack Obama pardoned somebody who went on to do this? Could you imagine? Another incident, according to the affidavit, occurred in a hotel with no further detail given. The child told Johnson they knew this was wrong. Johnson apologized, the police document said, and asked the child to not tell anyone so that he would not get in trouble. After the third instance, Johnson mailed the child an iPhone 7, which he said to keep a secret. Jesus Christ. Johnson then used Discord to communicate with the child without their mother's knowledge. Photographs on the phone showed Johnson sneaking into the home to spend time with the child. Oh my God, bro. Ugh. Both children said Johnson showed them lewd photographs and videos of himself, according to both arrest affidavits, and exposed himself to them in person. The second child, who's under the age of 16, told police Johnson made comments that led them to believe he was a pedophile, according to an arrest affidavit in the case, where Johnson was charged with lewd or lascivious behavior. Johnson, according to the second affidavit, also encouraged children to have sex in his van. What the fuck? Pardon January 6 rioters. Many of those charged in the January 6 cases, especially those who went to jail or prison, have formed a loose-knit community that socializes and fights with each other, both online and offline. Johnson has been a fixture within the January 6 online community. Really the best of the best, aren't they? MAGA is really the best of the best out there. He regularly led spaces, conversations on X, formerly Twitter, that would sometimes last over 9 hours on both X and his YouTube channel. Johnson positioned himself as a person who exposed perceived bad actors among the January 6 rioters, namely those who, he argued, were federal agents or provocateurs sent to make the Trump supporters at the Capitol that day look bad. It's unbelievable. Here's this guy, a fucking dedicated criminal and fredophile, and he's like, I found the real bad January 6 people, bro. It was the feds. It reminds me of how they would always contradict themselves. Half the time they'd be like, yeah, we did January 6th, and it was based. And then the other half the time they'd be like, actually, we didn't do it. Antifa did it, and it was bad. They go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. The fact of the matter is, to the extent there were any feds, they were probably correctly trying to nab your ass. Feds were there, but they were there after the violence started. That's what the reporting says. And if there were any feds that had infiltrated the movement, it was to try to make sure you motherfuckers didn't do some wild-ass, dumbass shit like you ended up doing. But no, they ended up doing, oh God. Again, FREDOPHILES. This is who Trump is pardoning. Many rioters have spent time defending themselves against Johnson's allegations or joining him in casting blame on others. Earlier this year, Johnson said he traveled from Florida to Pennsylvania to attend the funeral of fellow January 6 rioter Bart Shively, staying in an Airbnb organized by Jake Lang, a white nationalist rioter who is now running for Congress in Florida. If I'm not mistaken, guys, that guy Jake Lang, I believe is this the guy that just posted a video on social media of him going to a Dearborn government meeting and like basically yelling at all of them and telling them get the hell out of the country because they're Muslim? I think that might be the same guy. Again, look at who these people are. There's another January 6th rioter who wound up drunk driving the wrong way on the road and murdering a woman, killing a woman with his disgusting drunk driving. And again, there's not nearly enough talk about this, so people really understand the extent of Trump's pardons. And this isn't even the pardons that are pay to play, where you have some white collar criminal who committed fraud 78 times, and their mom goes to Mar-a-Lago, pays Trump $1 million, and then Trump pardons the person who then gets out and again commits more crimes. Again, the list is endless. I can't get over, like, what percentage of these people are FREDOPHILES? What percentage of these people have committed more crimes after getting out because of Trump? The right-wing outlet Gateway Pundit ran a story about Johnson in June 2024 ahead of his sentencing, referring to him as a single father who was on the brink of homelessness. The Gateway Pundit story, which uncritically offers Johnson's version of the events of January 6th, including his conspiracy theories about agent provocateurs, encouraged readers to donate money to the defendant. The article was based on an interview of Johnson by Jen Baker of Condemned USA, an organization that raised money for January 6 participants. Look at these disgusting freaks. Quote, I have had no contact with him since just after his pardon for January 6, Baker told The Intercept. I'm completely disgusted and horrified at these charges, and if he is proven to be guilty, I support any punishment he receives. Baker has recently been added to the Pentagon press corps for Gateway Pundit. Earlier this year, Baker wrote a sympathetic Gateway Pundit profile on Dylan Harrington, a January 6 defendant who is currently in jail while awaiting trial on a 2023 charge of first-degree grape. What the fuck? They're all criminals. Pedocon theory, criminal con theory. They are fucking as solid as a rock, these theories are. Johnson joins a short list of pardoned rioters who have been convicted or charged with sexual crimes against children, in most cases for conduct before the January 6 riot. Like Johnson, David Daniel was accused with a child sex crime allegedly committed after the January 6 riot. He was charged in April 2024 of possessing and production of child abuse sexual materials after the FBI raided his home in relation to the riot investigation. In deliberations, Daniel argued that because the raid and search were related to January 6, the evidence was inadmissible. That's what we were just talking about. So, man, I just can't. I can't with these people, bro. This is what Trump is doing. He's past giving a fuck. I mean, now they're talking about he might pardon Diddy. Diddy will pay him a pretty penny, too. So Trump can get paid whatever the hell he wants to get paid. And, he can make a lot of money off this. So he's probably going to pardon Diddy. He's not going to care what. He'll get 3 days of bad press and then he'll fucking brush it off and keep moving like he always does. Ghislaine Maxwell also might be pardoned. She's lobbying for a pardon right now. To be fair, she's already basically semi-pardoned. They took her from a real serious prison and waived a rule. The fact that she's a child rapist and child sex trafficker, and they waived a rule to let her go to like basically a club-fed prison where she can do hot yoga and she could play board games, and they literally gave her a fucking puppy, which even other people at the same prison don't get that right. They allow her to like leave when she wants and shit. Just insane leeway. And that was basically like, hey, you tell everybody I'm innocent and I'll fucking hook you up. And so Ghislaine did that. And they're hooking her up. But will he go that last step and pardon her? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, she's already, living her best life at this moment. She's happy with the accommodations that have been given. She has like a servant who waits on her. She was assigned like a servant who waits on her. That's how much Trump is doing favoritism for a child rapist and child sex trafficker. So you got Andrew Tate. They got him off from potential charges. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We know what went on with them. And now how many countless FREDOPHILES from January 6 have been completely pardoned because of Trump. And he hasn't been asked about it again. It never comes up. He never comments on it. Nobody around him is asked to comment on it. Again, if this was Joe Biden or if this was Barack Obama and it's the exact same set of facts, you would never fucking hear the end of it. And you'd be right to never hear the end of it. So shut the fuck up about law and order forever. You guys are the biggest fucking gaggle of criminal idiots I've ever seen in my life. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.